Do you ever wonder why you don't have the success in your life that you desire? Do you want to know how to succeed? Tune in and find out.
You are listening to the Prosper at Law podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosper at Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. Have you ever heard the phrase that 90% of life is showing up? I think that's attributed to Woody Allen, the filmmaker. 90% of life is showing up. And I'm going to give you a lot of examples that I've seen in my life where that was true. And if you think about it, in just the dumbest, most basic level, nothing's ever going to happen if you don't show up. For example, let's say that you're an aspiring actor and there's a play or there's an audition for a movie or something like that. And you're supposed to go to the audition so that you have a chance to get that part. And that day you don't go. And maybe you have a good reason. Maybe you're sick, you got the flu, maybe you got in a car accident, but I don't know if those are even good responses. But there's some reason in your mind where you don't go. Or maybe you just are fearful and you don't go. So it's easy to see the connection right there because you say, well, of course you didn't get the part because you didn't even go to the audition, so you didn't even give yourself the opportunity to have the part. So you have to go to the audition. But you really don't see it in other parts of life because sometimes it's just not that concrete. And you have to show up. And then sometimes when you show up, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later, and you always hear people say, you got to give 110%, or I heard somebody this weekend say, give 1,000%. And I decided early on, there's certain things I'm not going to say. And I'm not going to say, give 110%. I'm not going to say, give 150%. I'm not going to say, give 1,000%, just because it's physically and mathematically impossible. All right. It's really impossible to give 100%. And if you give 90-something%, then that's extraordinary. And if you give 100%, I can see how somebody could give 100%. Like, let's say you're a sprinter, you're an athlete, you're a track star, and you're a sprinter. I can certainly see how in that sprint, maybe not even the entire sprint, but out of that, say, 10 seconds, or maybe that 15 seconds or something, depending on the race you're running, that you're giving 100%. But can you really give 100% all the time? I'd say no. So what does it take? It takes effort. There could be situations where you show up and you think you really were only functioning at about 60 or 70%, but things worked out for you. And they worked out 90% of the reason, say, is that because you showed up. I know this has happened in my life where sometimes in trying a case, because I'm a criminal defense lawyer, where I was trying a case and I won the case, but I knew that that was not my best work. Like, I knew that was not the best cross-examination that I've ever done. That was not the best, say, closing argument I've had, or that was not the best direct examination. And in real time, when I'm doing it and I'm messing up, I know I'm messing up and I'm frustrated because I want to do better, but then I still get the results. And the reason I got the result is that even though I wasn't at 100%, I showed up, okay? You have to show up. When I played baseball in Little League, and I was in the 5th grade, 6th grade, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, something like that. And I was always played in the infield, but I was, on my baseball team, I was the worst player on the team. Everybody on the team was probably better than me. Maybe a couple people weren't as, maybe I wasn't the worst, but it felt like that I was. And a lot of these guys went on, and a lot of them played baseball later in college. They got scholarships to play baseball. Some of them got drafted, into the pros at the minor league level. And but what happened? I went to practice. I wasn't a good hitter. Okay, I didn't think I was a good fielder, but I must have been good enough because I was in the infield. And I did play some other positions, but many times I played second base, and second base is about the easiest position to play in the infield. So what happens? We have a really good team. We play well together, and then at the end of the season, there's an all-star team. And because we were the best team, and I think we won the league or whatever, I was picked to play in the all-stars. So I'm not even that good, and even then, I don't know that I didn't really try my best. I wasn't some, young Tom Brady or something that was going to be a professional athlete, but I showed up. So by showing up, I was on a winning team, and then I made the All-Star team. And I think I did that 2 years in a row or something like that. So why did I make the All-Star team? It's because I showed up, because I went to practice, I went to the games. When the coach told me to do something, I did it, okay? I showed up. That's really all there was to it. Now, there was also this situation where after Little League, I played in the other league. And that was when I think we were, I can't remember, but it's like 9th or 10th grade, something like that. And I think it was called the Pony League. I can't remember. But where I grew up in South Carolina, they had really good baseball. And historically, they had good baseball. And so I was there, and I had this very big embarrassment. And it was one of the more traumatic things that have happened in my life, because I had never been in the outfield. I'd never played in the outfield in my life. Now, I've been playing baseball 5 or 6 years, and I'd never even been in the outfield. Okay, there was never one time in my life where the coach said during practice, McCollum, go out in the outfield. Okay, never happened. So then we're in a game, and there's some people in the stands, and I can't remember, but it was a big enough game that people were actually there watching. And the coach put me in the game, and I don't remember what inning it was, but he told me to go out into center field. Now, center field, typically if you're in center field, you're a pretty good athlete, because that's where you're going to be able to get to a lot of pop flies, a lot of long hits that you have to track down. Maybe it's bouncing and you have to get it and try to get it, throw it in hard, to second base or something like that. So I go out there, and then I don't know what to do. And typically in the infield, when you hear the crack of the bat, usually your first step is forward, because you want to charge the ball, you want to go to the ball. In the outfield, that's not necessarily true. I'm not exactly sure how to play the outfield, because no one ever told me, and I never really studied it. I never really thought about it much until right now. But in the outfield, I'm pretty sure that when you hear the crack of the bat, you just assess. And I kind of think that the first move is like a back step or something. So I'm out there, and I hear the crack of the bat, and so I look up, and the ball is high. It's the highest thing I've ever seen. And you don't deal with that in the infield. And so here it comes, and I charge forward. I misjudge it, which no wonder I misjudged it. I've never even done this one time in my life, even in practice. Okay, so now we're in the game. So I charge forward. The ball sails over my head. So now, they're getting bases. They're getting runs. They're getting around the bases. I'm running out, trying to get the ball. It's a disaster. And then people in the stands are laughing. I hear them laughing at me. Okay, so I'm this vulnerable, 15-year-old, right? So my confidence is shattered. And after that game, I never went back to practice. I never went back, okay? And the coach's son used to see me at church or somewhere and say, hey, you should come back. My dad wants you to come back. My dad wants you to come back. I wouldn't go back. So my baseball career was over because I didn't show up. Now, I had a traumatic event, so I had an excuse, but I didn't show up. And by not showing up, I really robbed myself of probably what would have been a pretty good, quote, career as an amateur baseball player. But I didn't show up. The same thing happened. The same thing happened to me with football. So I played football off and on, and then I played football in the 10th grade, and I was on the junior varsity team. Our high school we had won a state championship. We had a good football program. A lot of people went to the games, and we were considered a good program. So in the 10th grade, I played JV. I didn't start. I didn't get to play a lot. I got very frustrated. And so after that, I didn't try out for the varsity team. Now, in my mind, I'd always wanted to probably play varsity football. And then the coach had grown up with my dad, and my dad told me this. I was out of school. I was an adult. My dad told me that the head coach had told him, he said, I'm surprised Greg didn't try out, for the varsity team because I would have played him. And I thought, well, that was really odd, right? Because I'm not starting on the junior varsity team. Now I'm going to move up to the other team, and the head coach has told my dad that I would have played. Well, guess what? I didn't know that. But because I didn't show up, I also kind of robbed myself of that high school football career, okay? And so that's just gone. And it's gone because I didn't show up, because I didn't go there. The same thing happens sometimes with this coaching company that I have, because, we run these ads and things and tell people, listen, if you want to change your life, then go on here, click here, and you get a free call with me. So you get a free session, 30 minutes, where I ask you, what do you want? What do you want to do in your life? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to be, do, and have? What do you want your law firm to be? And then you get basically some free advice and the opportunity to join either my mastermind or my coaching company or coaching program as a member. And my show-up rate for these free calls is about 50%. In other words, if I book like 20 calls, or somebody books, there are 20 calls booked in the next week or two, half the people don't show up, okay? So if you don't show up, you cannot benefit. Any good that the universe or God or spirit is going to bestow upon you cannot happen if you don't show up. And part of this is the importance of understanding this and showing up. Because if it is important, if it means something, and you really want to benefit from it, you just have to show up. You don't even have to necessarily be at your best, but you do have to be present. And you think about events in life. So it's a free call with Greg for the coaching company, right? So big deal. If it were more important, then everyone would show up. For example, what if it was your child's baptism? What if it was your son's bar mitzvah? Would you miss that? What if it's your daughter's wedding? Would you miss that? What if it was your father's funeral? Would you miss that? Why do you not miss those things? It's because you see them as important. Those are important things in your life. And so if you have the opportunity to change your life, you have to show up. If you don't show up, you have zero chance of changing your life. If you're in school and you don't go to class and you don't take the exams, if you have a job and you don't get up and go to work, okay? If you want to be fit and you're going to do an exercise program or something like that, and you don't ever go, you join a gym but don't go to the gym, then you get no results. And the same thing is true in life. It's the same is true in growing your law firm. You have to show up. Now, there are some other examples I could give, which is, for years I trained with a bodybuilder, and I went 3 days a week. I did it for about 4 or 5 years at one point, and then went back later and did it another 4 or 5 years. And, a lot of days I was in the gym, I didn't really feel like lifting the weights. Sometimes I may have been lifting the weights was I'd tell my trainer, like, I'm not feeling good, let's just get through it. And so I'm not lifting at 80, 90% of capacity, not even 100%. I mean, almost never going to be able to lift at 100%. So let's say a high percentage of strain would be, say, 85%, 90%, something like that. So in those days, I'm just, 50, 60%. I'm barely making it. I'm, quote, going through the motions, but going through the motions count. The same thing with running. When I run, I usually I run 2 miles, not about exactly 2 miles, and I do that 3 times a week. Okay. Now, some days I go out there and I feel like this is going to hurt. I don't feel like it. I'm just going to get through it. And so I don't worry about my pace. I don't worry about my time. All right. I just show up and just do it. And then you have this compounding effect and also opportunity. And so one of the things too is that sometimes things happen, okay? And they almost lead to really like a quantum leap. I could point to 2 or 3 things where I went and all of a sudden I got some information that changed everything. And had I not gone to that particular place, that particular time, and I can remember specifically one time, because I knew this lawyer coach, who's a friend of mine named Ken Hardison, because I knew him, and he invited me or got me an invitation to this mastermind group, which actually just ended up being in my own hometown, so I didn't even have to go out of town. And then I was trying to accomplish something, and the group of people in there who were all doing the things I wanted to do told me what to do. And they just boiled it down. They said, Greg, do this, do this, do this, and do this. And so I wrote it down and I did it that year, and it changed everything. All of a sudden, by just knowing Ken Hardison, who sent me to this group, who helped me, then all of a sudden it was life-changing. And because I was there, I was in the room. Now, the other thing about showing up is like, when in doing this podcast, I've looked at podcast statistics, I've looked at the numbers and that sort of thing. And I think it's 90% of podcasters stop after 3 podcasts. 90% of people start a podcast, never get past the 3rd one. Okay? So that's just not showing up. Okay? And there's this book, but I love this book. It's called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. And this book, I think, is 100 years old. Okay? And in it, Wattles, who I love, this is in chapter 12, Efficient Action. And I recommend this book. If you've not heard of it, I recommend that you read it. Wallace Wattles, Wattles is how he spells his name, The Science of Getting Rich. So this is just a little bit of it. If there is something that may be done today and you do not do it, you have failed insofar as that thing is concerned, and the consequences may be more disastrous than you imagine. In other words, you never know what opportunity you missed. Much may be depending on you doing some simple act. It may be the very thing which is to open the door of opportunity to very great possibilities. And I've experienced this many times. Much may be depending on your doing some simple act. It may be the very thing which is to open the door of opportunity to very great possibilities. If there's something that may be done today and you do not do it, you have failed insofar as that thing is concerned, and the consequences may be more disastrous than you imagine. He also goes on to say, do every day all that can be done that day. Now, he doesn't say to give 1,000%. He doesn't say to give 150%. He doesn't say to give 110%. He says, do all that can be done that day. But he also goes on to say, but don't do tomorrow's work today. Don't try to do a week's worth of work in a day. Do all you can today. And there's another book that called The Four Agreements, and this is by a guy named Don Miguel Ruiz, R-U-I-Z. And in The Four Agreements, Ruiz talks about do your best. And this is something we've all heard. And he talks about do your best. But it's interesting because he doesn't say you have to give 110%. He doesn't say you have to give 100%. And this helped me so much because what he says is do your best under your conditions that day. And he gives the examples that if you're sick and you don't feel well and you're not 100%, do your best given that you're sick and don't feel well. And that may be, what percentage might that be? That might be 25% or whatever it is. He says, say you're hungover, do your best under those circumstances. Not give 100%. It's doing your best and showing up consistently over time that changes your life. If you don't show up, you got no chance. You got no chance if you don't show up. If you do show up, even less than 100%, opportunities are going to come to you, things are going to change for you, and your life will get dramatically better. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
If you want to know more, go to prosperatelaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.